Welcome to Vialet Studio, where Vialet and her guests share stories of their passions, inspirations, and spiritual journeys. Vialet creates a sacred and fun space for individuals to be able to share information about themselves, their work, and their community. We are so happy you have joined us today. Let's get started with your host, the magical creator of Discover Your Spiritual Gifts, Vialet. Vialet Rand.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today for Vialet Studio. I am so excited today to have Hollister Rand with us, who just released a book, and you can see it has all my sticky notes in it. Everything you wanted to know about the afterlife, but we're afraid to ask. I love, but we're afraid to ask. And so I'm excited to be able to ask her questions today. And just find out a little bit more about her. So welcome. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Well, thank you so much. And thank you for starting with a centering and just being present. For everyone who's listening, who's an empath, there is so much going on and there's so much pain in the world right now that it is easy to get overwhelmed. And so in the morning, the first thing I do when I get up is to make sure that I'm fully in my body, fully present, that I'm grounded and protected. And then I start my day.
It's the only way to do this, right? Because I love to start classes that way. I love to start my sessions that way, just everything, because there's just so much in the world going on right now. And I think we all get caught up in it very easily. So yeah, thank you for that. So talk to us a little bit about your journey. What led you to connect to spirit and to write this book? So tell us a little bit about you.
Well, those are two very different questions. I have a similar story to many people, which is as a child, I saw spirits and then recognized that I was pretty much the only one in my group and my family who was acknowledging that, and then realized I didn't want to be different. So did my best to sort of tamp that down. And then after a car accident, which was extremely, extremely serious, I couldn't keep the spirits away anymore. My sensitivities just ramped up, and many people report that after a severe head injury and that kind of thing. And eventually I ran into other people just like me and began to learn how to manage this, and not just manage it, but become of service with it. So that's the first part. That's like the real total shorthand of my journey. But I find that that's helpful for people who have had their own journeys. But for those who want to understand life, death, the afterlife, how to be connected ongoing with the people we love, that's the reason I wrote the book. So everything you wanted to know about the afterlife, but were afraid to ask, is pretty much a Google search about the afterlife. It's every question people have asked me on paper, via email, in person at events, that I have sort of distilled down thematically into chapters. And people can go from question to question to question, things like, if I had 4 husbands, does that mean that I am stuck with all 4 of them for eternity? To what happens when someone commits suicide?
Those are really popular questions that we all get asked, right? And I love that we started it about, there's so many people out there that have had gifts and they were different than everybody else. And the challenges of, did they step in and utilize them? Did they have family that also had gifts and were supported? Did they shut them down? Did they perfect them? I think it's all over the board where people are. So I love when we're able to say, you're not alone. You're not the only one. You're not the only one that has gifts, but you do need to find other people to kind of support, because it's always nice to be able to talk to people and them not look at you like you got 10 heads, you know?
Well, one of the questions in the book is, does mediumship and psychic ability run in families? So I address that in the book because, you know, from my standpoint, if you find one psychic in a family, you're going to find others. They may call it by different names. So I remember there was a grandmother who could always tell what the sex of a child being born into the family would be. And this was before ultrasounds and all of that. So there were people who may have been very religious, but also had sort of a mystical understanding of life and were connecting in that way. And what I find incredibly powerful now is that those religious ancestors, those of us here on this planet now, often will say that we are spiritual, but that original connection and that understanding that there is something bigger than us, that there is the possibility to connect with something larger and bigger than us, and that we are connected in some way, has filtered down to us, and that connection has been established by our ancestors.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I love that. And you mentioned earlier about suicide. I'm sure a lot of our viewers would love some clarification on that, on what happens to someone that has committed suicide. What does that look like from your perspective on the other side?
Well, I come to the subject of suicide from a very personal place, having had a suicide in my own family. Mm-hmm. My dear cousin Tommy killed himself when he was 19. And so as a person, I had to deal with all of the what ifs, or why didn't he call me? Or how could I have helped? How did I miss that? All of those questions. And when I started communicating with the spirits, my deal was, or at least I thought my deal was, yeah, I'll do anything. Just don't bring me people who have died by suicide. That's just too hard. Mm-hmm. Well, what ended up happening was I started speaking with all sorts of people who had died by suicide and kind of got a crash course on how they thought pain ended. They thought things ended when suicide was the end. And it's not the end, it's just the beginning. And so I find that those who have passed with suicide so want to connect with people left here on the earth plane, if not to explain their passing, because as one young man in spirit said, would there be any reason good enough? And there isn't any reason good enough for us here. Right. But what I find suicide allows is an opportunity for us to love people unconditionally, no matter how they have chosen to end their lives. And from the perspective of the spirits, they understand the pain they have caused to others, but they are not separated from other family members, nor are they punished per se for dying by suicide.
Right, right. And I think that's comforting to families, right? There's a lot of healing that happens because depending on your belief system, there's lots of viewpoints. And so being able for the family and friends to heal, to know that their loved one is okay, I think is really powerful. Not that all readings don't lead to they're okay, right? They're okay. And, you know, we want to know, hey, my family member, my loved one is okay, wherever they are, right? And
well, there was a mother who came to my office door one day for a session. And when I opened the door, she said, I'm here because my son committed suicide. And I don't like to know why people are coming to me. I like the spirits to inform me. I don't like to have the information prior. And I was kind of taken aback. And I said, well, you know, why are you here? Because usually people want evidence that I'm actually speaking with their loved ones. So I said, why are you here? She said, well, I was told that I would be separated from my boy forever because he died by suicide. She said, so I wanted to hear what you had to say. I want a second opinion. And it occurred to me in that moment that this woman who had been brought up in a church, which was telling her that she and her son were going to be separated forever, could not conceive of a God that couldn't love her son as much as she does. So she came to the understanding, if I can love my son despite how he died, I can believe in a God who would as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So what have you learned about people? Are they around when they pass? Are they close by? Do they witness what's happening? What has been your experience? What can you share with us about when they immediately pass, what's going on?
Well, there are some similarities and there are some distinct differences.
Mhm.
So the similarities are that no one dies alone. So across the board, I have yet to hear a spirit say, I died and nobody was there. That has not happened in my experience. So even if we cannot be with our loved ones as they're passing, and currently with COVID, that's difficult. Families are separated from their loved ones as they're dying. But rest assured that those in spirit who have gone before are gathered, are present, will guide and support people through their dying experience. So no one dies alone. And sometimes it's rather obvious and takes on almost a physicality. And I describe this in my book. As a father and husband lay dying, he kept glancing up into the corner of a room and could barely take his eyes off that spot. And his wife was hoping that it was his beloved mother who was there with him in his final days. Well, when he spoke with me, he let me know his mother had met him, that she was with him, that she was helping him as he was separating from the body. And what is very interesting about that spot that he was staring at, the wife said the paint became discolored. And they never painted over it because for them, it represented that he was taken care of in his final days and moments.
I love that. I love that, just knowing. And then I know there's also a question in your book, like when people pass through traumatic, what we worry about was, were they in pain? Were they this? Can you share with us what you found in those experiences, what's happening?
There is tremendous grace in trauma. I have spoken with spirits who are outside of their bodies at the moment they die, as at the moment their bodies die. They never die. So the spirit doesn't die. It's the body that dies. And the spirit seems to have tremendous flexibility at the very end. So I have spoken with spirits who say they were thrown from their bodies as a car crash happened. I had a very dear friend who fell off a balcony in France. And I had all of these horrible things I was telling myself about, oh my God, did he see the cobblestones rushing up into his face? Did he know he was going to die? And when he came to visit in spirit, not just with me, but other friends who are mediums as well, he said he was standing on the balcony watching himself fall, kind of like, that's interesting. So in cases of trauma, there is a separation from the pain. And I will find this when I speak with a spirit who has died very slowly, a cancerous condition, let's say, or that kind of thing, where their bodies take impact over time. I will feel that as I speak with the spirit and am able to describe it. However, even at the very end with people who've suffered with cancer, if it looks like they're struggling, at the end to breathe, let's say, that is the body doing what the body does, which is trying to stay alive. And the spirit at that point will give me the feeling of separation from that pain and distress.
Very interesting. Very interesting. I love that. So with the holidays coming up, Hollister, do our family members gather with us? Are they part of that? Do they check in on us? What have you learned in those aspects?
Well, I like to think of the spirits as always being with us. They seem to demonstrate that as I speak with their loved ones here on the earth plane. However, there are times in which their presence seems to be more accessible. They seem to be more available, and it's an energy thing. So you can think of it like this. Say you have breakfast with your family, and then everybody goes off and does their thing during the day. You may stay in contact via text, you may call, that kind of thing, but you're not in the same place. But at the end of the day, you all come back together, you're having dinner together, and you're able to feel the other person being present. So you've been connected throughout the day, but their presence is with you in that specific moment in time. I like to think of our spirits in much the same way. They are connected with us all the time. Will send us messages, sometimes even via text or computer or phone, but they are connected with us all the time. But there are moments in which the energy creates a feeling of real presence, where it's more concentrated than it might be at other times. And those times are often holidays, when we are thinking about our loved ones, when we might even be missing them more. Mm-hmm. That reaching out is answered by their presence.
Awesome. Awesome. It's kind of comforting to know that our loved ones are always with us and around us, that we're never not without them. They're there if we're open to know that they're there, right?
Yes, but they're also very respectful. So you can take a shower without worrying that the whole spirit world is peering in on you. So there's respect, I would say. Plus, the spirits don't see us as we see each other. They see us as energy. So just so you know, loved ones in spirit will see you as energy. They will not see you growing old. They don't have that perception of you as old or wrinkled. I've had spirits, mothers, fathers, grandmothers talk to their loved ones who are now in their 70s saying, "Oh, my little boy, you are my precious boy." And meanwhile, I'm looking at a 75-year-old man thinking, yes, some boy this is. But to them, yes, that relationship is as it always was. So this is important for us to remember, that we really don't grow old, that we can be set in a place of time of happiness in our lives, a place of connection. So I will have spirits, this happened the other day during a session, a spirit reminded a loved one of the time when they were children. I think it was a brother reminding a sister who's still here on the earth plane, saying, "Remember when we were young? Remember what it was like climbing trees?" And this woman had been having trouble with her knees and her legs and was having trouble even getting around. And after the session, she was reporting even ease of moving, just this idea of reigniting the youth within us. It's really quite powerful.
It's really awesome. Do they come to you at the age or the view that they were when they left this plane, or do you see them at different ages or connections? How does that work for you?
It depends on who's coming to see me and what the purpose of the connection is. I had 3 sisters come and visit. I didn't know they were sisters. I thought they might be an aunt, and a daughter and a cousin. The age difference was quite astonishing. Well, it turns out they were sisters. The way I found that out was the same mother came to each of them, but she looked completely different and she felt completely different and she interacted with each of them very differently. And at the end of the session, I said, you all have the same mother, but she looks different, she sounds different, and she interacts with you differently. And they all started laughing, saying, our mother had us at different times in her life. And as we were driving over to your office, we said, it was like we had 3 different mothers. And so she came as 3 different mothers. Each of them had a very distinctly different mother, even though it was the same person. It was kind of profound.
Wow. Well, when you think about it, as we grow up, we change, we evolve, we're different. Our passions, our likes may change, our interests may change all on the way, which gives a different experience, right? So that makes total sense. So, is there a heaven? Is there like this place that everybody goes to that looks exactly the same for all of us? What have you found for that answer?
Well, I go into this in the book at length, so I'll give you sort of the short form of that. There are similarities in the way people report the afterlife to me, and there are also differences. So the similarities are it's very light, it's very bright at the higher level frequencies. So it is a world of frequency, of consciousness, not necessarily location. So at the frequency of divine love, that is where hopeful and helpful messages come. That is the frequency at which I work. Now, the other thing I've discovered is that each spirit can create a beautiful reality for themselves where they are. So some spirits will talk about endless gardens and rose bushes without thorns. How lovely is that for the gardener? There are other spirits who show me themselves playing cards with their friends, or gambling. I'm like, wow, there's gambling in the afterlife, or smoking, and a lot of these things they show me are evidence that they are who they say they are. And they remember these things that they enjoyed here on the earth plane, which makes it real to them in the afterlife. So you can live really in joy and in happiness with the people that you love, and also in remembering all the things that you love to do, plus your pets can be with you. So for me, that is like an afterlife with pets. Count me in.
So what can you tell us about our pets? Do they show up there? Do they take human form? Do they come back and be with us? What have you found with pets now that you mention them?
You know, there is a broad range of communication that I have with pets. I remember there was one dog, it was a lab, black lab, and she was in spirit, but laying on the floor with her tongue lolling out, and I heard the name Molly. And I said, oh, I have a black lab here named Molly, and Molly's just a happy dog. That was it. I could get nothing else. And the owner said, yeah, that was Molly. We don't think she had a brain cell, but she was a happy dog. That was it. And then I have other pets that will wax poetic with me, that will speak philosophically, that are entirely keyed in with their family, that will see themselves as children in the family. And some will view themselves as human. So I won't see a body. There have been times when I do not see the body, but I feel the spirit. I get the sense, I'm getting messages, I hear words, all of these kinds of things. And then at the end, I might say, well, I'm seeing a little white dog. And I remember one woman said, he is my little white dog. And I thought, my God, I thought I'd been speaking with a person this whole time. So this dog had been talking about how he loved to sit in the garden with her as she wrote in her journal, which he did. She took him out, and how she would make him steak and how his favorite meal was steak. And yes, she did. So I was thinking this was her partner, a husband or something. I couldn't believe it. And it was actually her dog.
That is awesome. That is awesome. So that means we can see them again. I think that's really amazing that we can spend time with them. And
they honor the relationship. And one more quick story. My beloved cat, Chi, died shortly before I was to do a mediumship development workshop. And I thought, Chi, how can I do this workshop? I was so grief-stricken. He was a Bengal cat, or he is a Bengal cat, I should say, and gorgeous spots, magnificent cat. And I used to joke and say, he's the only man that was in my bed for 8 years. So he slept with me.
We lost each other for a minute. How about that?
The spirits do a lot with the energy of computers and everything.
All the technology, right? It's just, we find that a lot. Well, thanks for sharing all these stories, but I'm interested in, do you offer classes? Because it sounds like you've had some development classes and you see clients. Share with us a little bit about some of that information, because I'm sure our guests would like to know some more about that as well.
I love sharing what I know. It thrills me, which is one of the reasons why I wrote this latest book, which covers a lot of topics. But it sort of scratches the surface. It's an introduction. And although I deal with questions, many of them more in depth than most answers would be, that you'd be able to give in a public setting, I do like intense mediumship classes as well. So I'm starting to put together some of those to teach online in 2021. Up to this point, classes, serious mediumship development classes have been in person. Now I do have some online classes currently that are really inexpensive, that people can use to start getting more acclimated and connected with their own loved ones in spirit. But yes, I will be teaching mediumship development in 2021. So stay tuned for that. I do offer sessions by Zoom and phone. I have spirit circles, a free email newsletter at hollisterrand.com that you can sign up for. I do regular Facebook Live events, lots of free events online where I give messages to people. So yeah, there's a full menu of ways that we can get connected and stay connected.
I love that. You know, I've been a medium since I was a child, but I've never had really what I would call training. It's come to me, but I've always looked to learn more about the skill set to develop it even more. Even though I've worked with it, I would just love to know more about it. So I'm very interested. I'll have to check that out. And I have to say, I really appreciate, I have loved your book and I have checked out your website. I love your offerings. I'm sure many in our community can really benefit, especially people that have lost loved ones. They're searching for answers. And so I think it's beautiful to have people like you out there working and giving people answers, because you know, there is something after this. This is not it. And so I love the fact.
No, as a matter of fact, I really do think that all of us who have been working with spirit all of our lives, this is our moment. This is the moment that we have really been preparing for. Spirit needs us to comfort loved ones. Spirit needs us to allow them to have a place card at the banquet of life and to help their loved ones to get connected and stay connected with them. So I am so grateful that I can be of service at this moment in time.
Yeah, I agree. I think in the years to come, more people are going to be awakening, looking and searching for answers. I think they've already started, of course, but I feel like there's going to be more and more people looking for answers, and they're asking us to help. So, you know, we're all being called to show up and be of service. So I love that. So thank you so much for your book, and thank you for taking the time. I look forward to seeing more information about your classes. Please let me know as those get ready. I would love to be able to share that information with our community as well.
Wonderful.
I really do appreciate it. And thanks with our patience today with technology, right?
Oh, well, you know, I've gotten used to that, working with the spirits. Always have extra batteries. It's kind of important.
Right? And 2 or 3 recorders. And I tell people, you got to record it on 3 items, because I've seen them blow them all 3 up and go, nope, you don't get a recording. So, yeah, so it always makes it fun. Well, thank you so much for sharing your time today. I have thoroughly enjoyed it. And I hope in the future we can have you back with whatever you're working on in the future, and have you back on the show again.
Thank you. I would love it.
All right. Thanks for watching today, and we hope you'll check us out on our YouTube channel or see us at our center here in Littleton, Colorado. Thanks for watching today, and have a great day.